All right, TV is on.
Please roll.
Just a bunch of pennies in there, huh?
Yeah, that's all. I get paid off for this. But I'm cheap, yeah. Are we ready to go?
We are.
All right, here. We're going to start with an opening of this meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. And let us stand for the pledge, please, folks. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now my dear seatmate, who is our conduit to the Almighty, is going to...
Okay, so I do quick prayer, okay. Oh, Father God, we just thank you for being with us today, Father God. We know that this is your work and not ours. These are your buildings and not ours, Lord. This is your world, and you put us in it to survive and have a good time doing what we want to do. So, Lord, let us just go through a budget just like this, because those who prepared it know it much, much better than I. And I thank the Lord for that. And Lord, give us a good meeting, and thank you for whoever comes in. Meanwhile, thank you for being here. So, in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. All right. Now, I guess we open with, is there any public comment? With no public, I don't know that we have any comment, but
Well, that, and we need to vote to approve the minutes from
Okay.
the 10th and the November 10th and January 14th.
you want to, anyway, we conducting a vote to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? We have a second. All in favor? Aye. Minutes approved. Go ahead. So, that accomplished. Is there any public comment of any sort?
There is not.
Okay, so we're opening and closing public comment. We now have our esteemed executive director's report to the board.
All right. Just a note, I think just so the board knows that Katrina could not be here today. Ms. Lewis could not be here because she's got a sick child, and I guess Mike Arntz is not feeling well either, so they couldn't be here on the board. Couple of things. Let's see. I also wanted to start off with just to let you all know that Asani Poku on our staff is right now mourning the loss of her father. So if you could just think about her and keep her in your thoughts and prayers as she deals with those. We're all thinking about her. So a couple of things in your packet. You have, you'll see a property management data overview, and it looks like this, and it covers 2 months, and the reason it covers 2 months is because I want to show a trend of 4 months, and we ended with the calendar year, so we started one year and started the other. But if you look at it, it covers November and December in one packet, and then January and February in the other packet. So in regards to occupancy and data, it's been going up. Our occupancy is going up. All of our properties except Graysonville Terrace are currently above 90% occupancy. Graysonville Terrace is at 87, so we're getting close there. We ended February with 21 total vacancies out of about 230 units, mostly at Terrapin Grove. We've got 11 of those units are already ready for occupancy and should be filled within this month. In regards to our wait list, demand remains high. For example, we got a wait list of 615 at Terrapin Grove and 402 at Graysonville Terrace and a 186 at Foxtown. In regards to rent collection, February saw a low of only 3 payments late, and which is a significant improvement from November when we had 6. Or 12 in November. We have 6 failure to pay rent cases that we've put in front of the courts that could ultimately lead to eviction if they don't get paid during that process. So 6 currently for that. Court is next week for the first one of those. In regards to our voucher program, the program is steady at about 154 vouchers. It's been increased by about 14 as we finalized our project-based vouchers out at Slippery Hill. And I'll cover this later on too, but Slippery Hill, we did the last project-based voucher this month. And currently staff is approximately recertifying about 12 voucher holders a month. So from our property manager, couple of things going on. We are working very hard in our communities to upgrade. We're looking to upgrade signage soon. We're looking to improve our landscaping, just to do kind of the curb appeal and make the outside of these buildings start to look more welcoming. As we've worked on customer service internally, now we're focusing on some of the outside. Internet, and I think, Steve, this was a big one for you, internet and cable service expansion. The idea is that we want to provide our residents with as many options for internet and cable as they have. So in addition to what we have with Breeze Line, we are been in talking with Comcast and also Talkie. Comcast is not yet available in all locations, but they are expanding in the places we are. We're going to work to try to get them in. And then in regards to Talkie, Brian's visited all properties with representatives from Talkie. They've walked through. They've got detailed drawings and descriptions of how service will be brought to each building. So that's kind of where they are. And so we're hoping that, you know, what happens is when a resident comes in, they can choose amongst 3 or none at all and have their choice eventually. That's where we're getting at. And I know it's a big push.
Percentage-wise,
What's that?
How much less expensive is Talkie than our current is Breeze Line, yes?
I don't know if they are less expensive or not. It's hard to kind of answer that question because they all have so many different packages.
Yeah.
It might be worth it. We could get them to come in and make a presentation, have the different ones so you guys could learn like the different packages they all offer and things like that. The goal is though, is that we just don't want to have any of them be exclusive. We're not looking to swap Breeze Line out for Comcast or Comcast out for Talkie. We'd like to make it so that the tenant can have a choice between the 3.
This all came up because we had I won't say countless, because you can count anything, but we had a parade of complaints about the Breeze Line service, and that it was interrupted and intermittent and of the lowest sort of quality, and why was everybody trapped with that specific service? So what we're trying to do, I don't think it's up to, I don't really want a presentation because it's up to the tenants, not us.
Right.
What service they choose, but I think it's up to us to provide them with an escape from one that isn't good if somehow the county landed them with just one.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think we're well on the way to having Talkie access to the buildings, and then Comcast is probably not far behind as long as we can make it so that they can all work. Another big piece of this is as we bring in wires and things like that, we want to, so like at Riverside and Fisher Manor, there's going to be individual vaults and a small box mounted on the back side of each building. At Graysonville Terrace, we got fiber optic service with Talkie to each apartment. However, we're going to need to mount some of those in the front of the building. So we've worked so hard to get these apartments good on the inside, and we just want to, and we're working to make them look presentable outside too, that we don't want a lot of wires and things hanging around. We want it done tastefully outside. So we're keeping that in mind as we go forward. So that's kind of like, and I have a personal, when I pull up to some of them where it's allowed to have satellite dishes, and those just to me are so unsightly. That I'd love to see those off the roofs. They're not really, we're supposed to be placed up there, but it's tough once they get up there.
You mentioned we had a lot of issues with Breeze Line, a overabundance of complaints.
Yes.
Is there any way we can say, hey guys, you got to clean up your act, or we can't bring you in here, because many of the residents don't have the knowledge or desire to go change, and it's they're victims of the inability to go out and get a better service, and that's my issue. Can we?
I don't know that I would want to take up being a judgmental force over, even though I had some complaints, then there might be defenses against that. I think our job is to inform the tenants as to, and maybe even say this one hasn't done well, but to try to regulate it seems to me a little bit of an overreach, but I'm not the end of the world on this. Roger,
I think
Mike,
providing access,
we have our esteemed commissioner hiding back in the corner there. Yeah.
But if we, no, if we can go ahead and say, hey, guys,
Hear your whole conversation, but isn't that, the long driveway, Megan's?
I have, what the cause is, we don't know, but I know that at both, I go to all these household meetings, and time and again, people say, we have breeze line, and you'll be in the middle of a show, and suddenly the screen will go blank, and there's nothing you can't finish seeing it. And this isn't an individual complaint or three, it's three other people will join in and say, that's happening to me too, which caused us to say, well, look, if that service can't get the job done in a very orderly way, we ought to let them have another way. But as things stand, if they cancel that, they have nothing. So that's where we're in deficit.
Right.
Yeah.
Has the broadband advisory committee been notified about this? Because this is the first time I'm hearing this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we've been on the case here trying to get it changed. That's
Right.
Michael,
Well,
yeah.
no, I don't think, and like you said, I don't think, we're not looking to really necessarily change per se, is just to add options so
Yes.
that all the residents can let them pick, like, we provide them as much as is available and then they can pick which one they want. And I think to answer your question, Rick, is that, you know, if there's some competition, that might just naturally force better service
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, I meant change in the sense of offering options as versus,
Right.
not change out of necessarily.
Not switch.
Anyway, proceed, sir.
so they will bring the option to the building, even though they might not have anybody buying it yet? Is
Well,
that-
they'll run the line there and then, you know, and then they'll see.
Okay.
So, and like, for example, the Comcast doesn't reach Foxtown yet, so that wouldn't go into Foxtown till it was available, but Talkie does, so.
I would agree, making sure we have all the options available so they
I
can
mean,
switch if they need to switch.
common sense would suggest that if they can afford to run a line to a single house, they can afford to run a line to a facility that's got 40 possible customers.
Exactly.
And that, you know, they'll at least pick up enough to pay for the line, so.
So, all right, on with the development updates. So we're expanding our cleaning services. Currently, we have cleaning in place at Terrapin Grove and Foxtown buildings, but we're working to finalize agreements for Graysonville Terrace, Fisher Manor, and Riverside, mostly in the community areas there. We continue to do property enforcement and tenant accountability. We're balancing, you know, our size of our staff to but while enforcing leases and rules. We're prioritizing safety and health, which, and that can be a large task. We're also starting to handle a lot with trespassing. If we find there's certain folks that aren't allowed to be or are in trouble, we will often put a no trespassing with the sheriff and then let the tenants know to let us know if they are seen. Another thing, we've been working in a strong partnership with the county is we are strongly bringing up the Everbridge notification system that the county uses specifically for our tenants. It allows us to send notices and reminders and important updates via text messages and email now at a lot faster. We will continue to send out the old way with flyers and things, but if the tenants really want the latest and the greatest and the fastest, we're really encouraging them to sign up with Everbridge. Just for example, during the recent snowstorm, it proved especially valuable. We were able to quickly notify tenants about the office closures, provide updates regarding the snow removal and parking lot clearing. So it's been really good for maintenance alerts. It's been really good for emergency information. It's been very good for general updates. So the folks over so many people have been helping us. That might be the theme of the meeting tonight. But the Department of Emergency Services, they've been wonderful on this. In regards to snow removal, as you all know and probably experienced, it was a lot of challenges with snow this year. You know, this is the most amount of snow. Brian and I both felt like right when we start working for the Housing Authority, we get some of the most snow we've ever had, but and some of the hardest snow. And there's some challenges due to snow and ice accumulation. Typically, and this is, we've researched this, so most apartment buildings, you do the main areas, you're responsible for shoveling out the main areas and the walkways and things, and then tenants are responsible for shoveling out their cars, et cetera. But this time with the ice, we were able to get a little bit of extra funds and help some of the tenants get out where their cars were snowed or pushed in, because basically it was just ice with like rocks in front of them. That was kind of hopefully a one-time thing, because that was just such intense ice, but we did do that this time. Big thanks in regards to snow in general, big thanks to Parks and Recreation and the county overall. Also a big thanks to our staff, Brian, Chenard and Melissa. They've been working overnights, and I mean, with the rest of the county, they've been doing overnights. They're getting here, and it seems like every snow is coming on a weekend, having to come on an overnight, having to drive, having to stay there. And they've been doing a great job, not complaining. And Parks and Rec's they've got a lot of stuff they got to cover, and and they've been great for us too, and working with us. And we even working with us to even plan out next year. We've already had meetings to plan out next year's snow plans. So they've been wonderful.
We don't rely on contractors. We don't have contractor snow removal, do we?
No, I mean, we could, and on occasion, we'll bring in a contractor, like, for example, a special circumstance to help get some of the tenants dug out that just couldn't. On this last one, we'll bring them in on occasion, and we have them in a Rolodex. But for the most part, we've been able to use Parks and Rec and our own folks, mostly Parks and Rec.
Because my ice was a stick.
Yeah, you weren't singled out.
What am I going to do?
Yes.
I had a very good compliment from one of our units that was particularly of the opinion that Parks had done a really nice job, and
Yeah.
they were very effusive in their recommendations. And then the next one, I had somebody who was kind of grumpy, but I think it had to do with their car rather than the whole.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that,
I will say, the business of plowing snow is, it's a nightmare for the staff. It's amusing because one of our snow trucks plowed something and plowed somebody's driveway back in when they'd shoveled it, and before too long, the guy came out and said, the next time you come by, I'll have my gun and you won't be by again. So we wound up having to send deputies to. So, you wind up with every kind of public response. But I'm very appreciative to the Housing Authority, it does all the, I mean, DPW does the county roads, but Parks does the schools. And that's a really, really tough assignment. And
they also help with some of the where the ambulances are kept too.
which one?
So they also help with where some of the ambulances go
Oh,
out
yeah.
and things
Oh,
like
sure.
that. So yeah, which I wasn't aware of till this year. So yes, we appreciate. A couple more community updates as far as our communities. We're continuing to work hard and try to be there and respond to all of our maintenance requests quickly. Try to be there personally to talk with folks, respond to phone calls. We're partnering with Character Counts on March for a campaign focused on digital responsibility to help tenants, especially seniors, avoid digital scams, which are a lot of, which is happening more and more. So we're going to be working on that. Also, up at Foxtown, this Wednesday night at 7 p.m., we've arranged, based on, Steve, your request and their request up there, is we've got the fire chief up there, and we've got our fire inspector and possibly Scott Haas or somebody from DES to go up and speak to the group up there about fire safety and where to go if there is a fire, and when to leave and when to stay in place. And we had a similar one like that about a year ago at Terrapin and went over very well.
We've done it multiple times at Terrapin, and somehow, I don't know how Foxtown, but it was in rotation.
Yep. In regards to special property-specific updates, we've got lighting in the front entrance and the community room's been upgraded. So we've done that. In regards to the wait list, we've implemented 3 steps for our workflow for internal controls, just to make sure that people, if they ask questions about our wait list, we can say that we followed it and it's been reviewed by 3 different people who've signed off on it. At Terrapin Grove, we are also working on replacing the fireplace in the common room there. It's the existing unit's outdated and the igniter switch is kaput, so we're working on
You
that.
ever get that one specific complaint about the placement on the wait list at Terrapin Street?
Yes, yes.
straighten
You helped
that.
with that. That was just before Christmas, and I haven't heard anything more about it.
Yeah.
So I think that was,
Okay.
that resolved it. That was,
So with the wait list?
Yes.
Quick question. We have 613 people on the wait list.
yes, on one of them,
And we have
correct.
an average transition rate of maybe 10 units a month, right? No,
The
10,
most.
10
That- yeah.
10 units a year. I mean, some of these, we can get up to 500, and there's gonna be 100 people gonna expire before the wait list reduces.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, beside that, if we reduce the wait list, it would fill right up again because we reduced it. There are a lot of people that don't go on it because it's, so, isn't that correct? A lot of people that are discouraged by the fact that, you know, if you're not gonna get picked up for years, don't bother.
And then there's also the fact that, like, for example, when we do get them on the wait list, they're in the middle of another lease and they can't get out of the lease they're in at that point. But in the bottom of your packets, I put in a resource list that we maintain in the office. And we aren't, you know, normally you don't say this if you're in a business, but we aren't the only game in town. There's other places that provide rental housing for folks with lower incomes or limited incomes in Queen Anne's County. And so we're like, and I think at the time, a lot of times folks just think housing authority, it's the only game in town for lower income. And we're not. I mean, there's still a need in Queen Anne's County for more, but as we talked about at the board retreat, but there are more options, and sometimes, and their wait list might be shorter, et cetera. So we've got that available to our folks on our website, et cetera. Graceville Terrace, we're going to replace around, I don't know if you ever noticed out there, but around all our HVAC enclosures, there's a white fence that kind of blocks it just to help with the scenery. Well, all those fences are either falling down or peeling. So here in the spring, our plan is to replace those with vinyl fencing that'll be more durable, reduce our long-term maintenance costs on those, and just make them look overall better. At Foxtown, this one has become one of our tricky ones, actually. They've requested a vending machine at Foxtown. And we've tried to get a vendor to go up to Foxtown and put a vending machine up there. We've talked to 2 or 3 of them. Every time we call the main office, say, sure, we'll get one out there. And then we talk to the local guy, and the local guy says, I'm not driving up there to fill up a vending machine. So we're still working on that. When I explained that to the folks at Foxtown, they were totally understanding of it. They understood that it's, I mean, they want one, they're not, but they also understand that it's a, you know, area, that area is susceptible to folks having a hard time providing services. But we're still looking at some ideas there.
Yeah, there's no concessionaire that's working with the county on, like, catering and whatnot that could,
Oh, they could get stuff, and in fact, I'll tell you, I made them the offer at Foxtown. I said, I'll buy you an icebox, and I'll fill it up with stuff, and then you keep it up on the honor system. And they said, here, there is no honor system. That was the end of that.
So that's Foxtown. Fisher Manor, we're going to start, I don't know if you're aware of it, but they've got these nice sheds. They're nice, but they need to be repaired. But we've got these nice sheds back behind the buildings there. So our plan for this spring is to put new roofs on them, to do some structural repairs to those sheds and repaint them so they look better. The current ones are experiencing roof deterioration and rot, but the overall bones of those sheds are in good shape. We're also looking to, and I think we'll cover a little bit about this later, but we're looking to redo the decks, but that has become a bigger task, as some of you all know, than we expected, because a lot of the poles, et cetera, are load-bearing poles, and to get those decks and steps in the back repaired and replaced has become a bigger effort than we imagined, but we continue to work on those. In regards to our scattered site, we've got 2 places in Churchill. One place we've done a lot of maintenance upgrades, including replacement of roof, back deck, flooring, and interior paint. And then another one, we've got a new roof. And then at Riverside, I already told you a little bit about the fences at Riverside that we're looking to do with the decking. And then also, we are looking to do paving the parking lots along with Fisher Manor. So I'm sorry, at Riverside, we're working on an overall cleanup there and parking lots along with Fisher Manor. Let's see, is that everything for, just a couple of things we're working on. Also, I told you about the decks, and at Fisher Manor. We're also, we've got a grant. We've got a grant, and it's in the next stage of the process for getting an environmental review. The grant's been approved. Now we're going through a process, because it's a federal grant to these things. We're doing an environmental review currently. Once we get past that, we'll probably either put it out to bid, or we'll see if we can work off the bid that the county allows us to have, which would be nice, but because this is federal funds, we might still have to put it out to bid, even though we could use a state contract if it were just regular funds. We're gonna see where that is, but in the meantime, it will allow for us to repave the parking lots at Fisher Manor and at Riverside, which I think will make a big difference at both those places. Just driving out during snowstorms those places being paved will be very nice. We're applying for a couple more grants. We're applying for a Lowe's Hometown Grant for regular beautification, to do new furbishing, building signs, and potentially gazebos at each property where folks, for the smokers or folks just to hang out, there'd be a better place for them. The deadline, that's just a grant, that's not a guarantee yet, but the deadline for that is March 20th. We're also, our insurance company that provides some of our insurance has a grant process and a lot of security, so we're looking to do some electrical work and some security work at Fisher Manor if we get that grant. And that grant is, when is that grant? That grant's due May 31st. But we might upgrade our cameras and our electrical system to the cameras out there.
So how many grants did we get this past year? I mean, I love that word grant, because that's for money.
Yeah.
And
Well, I mean, HUD provides 2/3 of the money for this operation.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep, so that's, you're right, HUD does that one, and then the CDBG, so we're probably around between 5 and 10 grants, and we want to increase that. And that's actually another Brian Barnshaw that's working on a lot of that. It's the son of our Brian Barnshaw, who does a lot of resource development work for us.
But the reason I bring it up, I know in years past, we were grant adverse because we don't have anyone working on the grants. And that's ridiculous.
There's a lot of work to grants, and like the CDBG that project's gonna be harder because it's a grant, but it's worth it, it's a couple $100,000 at the county and county taxpayers, and we're able to keep our tenants' rents down a little bit because of it. So, but it's a lot of work to apply for it, and then it's a lot of work to make sure you're crossing your T's and dotting your I's when you're doing it. Versus where if you're just getting general funds and can throw it out there a little bit, it takes a lot. So, and on that note, I was gonna say this with the budget process, but also on that note, that is where the county partnership and the people in the finance office, they're amazing. I'll talk more about it when we talk about the budget, but in regards, just they make it possible for us to get grants too. Also, the folks in our county housing office, they're overseeing a lot of making sure that we're doing a lot of this stuff, and they've been a big support. So a lot has to come together for that, because grants aren't just, sometimes they are. Sometimes some nice person just writes you a check and you got a grant, but most of them, especially the federal and the state ones, there are a lot to them. And you need a pretty good-sized staff to make it happen. So that's everything from the executive director's report, unless there's any questions from the board.
Failing any questions from my fellow board members, we now proceed to, we've done those, we're now at old business, Michael?
Sure. So old business, a couple of things. First bullet there is housing choice voucher shortfall. You may recall that during the summer and during in early fall that we were, for our housing choice vouchers, that's the Section 8 rental assistance that we provide, we was looking like we were heading down the road where we were going to run out of money from HUD and might have to cut some people out of our voucher process. We worked on a loss prevention team with HUD. We work with the county finance office, and now I can kind of say that we did a financial review of the program, we made some changes, and then with some extra funds from HUD, we are basically out of that status. Now, HUD says that we have to stay in that status for a year, even after, but for all intents and purposes, we're recovered, we're back in, and we're not on a path to run out of money for it. However, there's always a however. The current situation of the federal government is now saying that they don't have as much money in general for housing choice vouchers from HUD looking forward. So they are going out to, as my understanding, to every housing authority across the nation and looking for us to determine cost-cutting measures to do that. Because federal funding expectations are expected to decrease this year, and they want us to limit costs. So on the 26th of this past month, we participated in a check-in meeting with our HUD analyst, and they gave us a bunch of cost-saving things they want to do. For example, they want us to make sure that we look at our payment standards, to make sure that when we're paying rents, the certain amount that we're paying falls within their payment standards. We're not paying for rent that's above our payment standards. And ours goes actually to 110% of payment standards, and I believe, I ran off a little chart just so you get an idea that, like, for example, a 2-bedroom apartment for us, the payment standard is $1,965 a month. Basically, we're allowed to pay up to $2,000 a month allow somebody to have an apartment, and we go to 110. So for a 2-bedroom apartment, they could go as high as about $2,200 for us. But but they want us to go back and check that if we're providing assistance for someone staying in an apartment where they're paying rent more than that for a 2-bedroom, they want us to hop on that and do that. They also want us to work real hard for folks that are not reporting their income. If they're making more income than they're reporting, they want us to pursue that very heavily.
How would we even undertake that?
They have to report their income every month on certain, and we also have federal websites that show their income. So we check that pretty regularly. And if they change it, if their income changes, they're supposed to put it in. We also have tried to make it even easier for them. We've put things on our website so that if their income increases, they can click on our website and just let us know. It's not that simple. There's forms they got to fill out, but they can let us know. But it's and they know, it's made clear to the folks that receive those that, if your income goes up, it's very important that you report it to the staff, because it could jeopardize.
Can you be bounced out? I mean,
Well, typically what happens if your income goes up, you have to pay more of the rent and we pay less of it.
Right.
That's why this is such a hard program to budget for, because it's constantly moving month to month. I mean, so yeah, that's what and eventually if they do what you hope happens is they cost themselves out, then this goes to what's called zero HAP, where they're basically paying the whole rent, and then after a certain amount of time, they're to transition off. And some of the new rules are having them transition off quicker than what they traditionally did. The other thing is that we were kind of doing this now already, but if we do have people that go off a housing choice voucher for death, or they go out for whatever reason, is that that's not a voucher we use again for somebody else. We just don't refill the vacancy. So there's things. So we're not bringing on new applicants. We're evaluating new contracts very carefully. So those are some of the things we're working on there. In regards to, speaking of housing choice vouchers, but something different, I've been letting you all know that we have these project-based vouchers. Project-based vouchers are different from the housing choice vouchers. The housing choice voucher is I give a tenant a voucher.
Thank you.
And they take it to pretty much any there's a lot of rules, but they go pick their apartment and they go live in their apartment, they get the voucher. Tenant-based or property-based vouchers are where they live. They get to keep the voucher for as long as they live in that building. And at Slippery Hill, they've got a lot of units over there with all kinds of different funding structures and funding schemes at Slippery Hill. One of those is a partnership with us as a housing authority to provide 14 project-based vouchers. Well, in the transition, there were some big issues that we had to work through, but I will happily say, and it was kind of touch and go thing there for a while, but I will say happily that Hassani and the staff have worked extremely hard. And as of January, we now have all places filled with 14 vouchers. So that in fact was a huge accomplishment. So I'm very, very happy about that. In regards to the third bullet there, CDBG, Fisher Manor, we already talked a little about that. We got a $136,000 grant and funding from the CDBG, Maryland State Community Development Block Grant, to pay Fisher Manor and Riverside Estates parking. We are currently having the environmental review process, which we anticipate having that done at the end of this month. And then, like I said, we got to decide if we're going to put it out the formal bid or if we can just use the contractor that the county uses. We prefer to use the contractor that the county uses, but you got special circumstances with the rent. And then lastly, for old business, I'd just like to say thank you to you all, to the staff, to everybody else that came out and attended our board staff retreat meeting on the 14th. It was conducted as a public meeting and drew participation from you all, from planning and zoning, economic development, the LMB and others. It's centered on affordable housing, as you all know, and with lots of good discussion. We defined what affordable housing means locally. We talked about some of the important things we need to do is review community stigma, engage landlords more effectively, and use local data to drive decision-making. We talked about our role in all that. Looking ahead, it was determined that we want to have a couple near-term priorities. We want to increase the supply of affordable and attainable housing while preserving existing stock. We want to clarify what the community needs are with it. We want to strengthen landlord engagement. And some of the specific things we're going to do is we're going to work towards establishing formal affordable housing committee work group, which would include community, us, the Housing Authority, Planning and Zoning, Economic Development, and the Local Management Board. I know the Local Management Board and the County Housing Office also is looking to do a needs assessment again. So we're probably going to use that as a process and combine it with the Local Management Board's needs assessment and look at how affordable housing and workforce housing and things can work in the county there. So, some of the strategies that came up at the meeting were piloting expanded landlord incentive strategies, convening partner agencies aligned with roles and responsibilities. So there's, and then beginning to map out short, mid, and long-term actions for that. So we kind of got a good start with that. And I think the next step is to pull together folks or actually we don't have to pull together, they're already meeting, just to kind of organize folks and to see where we want to go with that. So that is all of the old business that I had to catch up on there.
All right,
For new business?
that being that, I think we now proceed to our new business, which is the budget.
Yes, which we would appreciate a motion for that one. So what I'll be asking if you're so willing, is to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 27 budget as written on the motions page there. But basically, the idea would be that you're submitting it to the commissioner for approval. You'll see that I sent it out earlier last week, but there's also one in your packet. And it consists of three parts: the operating budget, covering the PHA as a component unit. They treat us as a component unit very similar to the way they treat the Board of Education as a component unit, where they send a block of money over. It includes revenues, expenses, salaries, contracted services, and benefits across all programs. The second part of it is a capital budget covering 6 facility projects, which is all our developments. And then I also included, just so you could have it and see more detail, our individual property budgets, which also includes our Housing Choice Voucher Program. So that's it. A couple of things, just a couple of highlights that you may have noticed as you were looking through it. It's a total budget of about $5 million. It's a 4.8% increase over the previous year. A revenue increase was driven by about $130,000 rise in federal HUD operating grants and about $288, almost $89,000 from county grant revenue, which is partially offset by a $150,000 reduction from another miscellaneous program.
When you say county grant revenue, do you mean actual grant revenue, or this is just a dispensation from the county?
Dispensation from the county. To us, it's a grant. To them, it's coming out of their funds and their budget.
Yeah,
yes.
no, I mean,
Yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
I mean, they're spending about 800,000 on this operation, right?
Yep, yep. They're putting a lot in it.
Yeah.
So, also in the salary and wages portion of the budget, they're increased by 2%. And then we also have put in a request for 2 new positions, a facilities technician, 1, and an assistant property manager. So that's a combined total of about $170,000 if that were to be approved. Those are very key. We put them last year. It was a tough year last year. We're very hopeful that we get both those positions this year. If we can get the facilities tech position, the 3rd one, which would go with Melissa and Chenard, be a 3rd one, that allows Brian more time to focus on less on unstopping a toilet or unlocking somebody that locked themselves out, and more time working on these capital projects that we have. And we have a lot of capital projects working with all the different funders and things. So that would be wonderful. Additionally, most of my time, most of the property manager's time through the month of February has been dealing with tenants who unfortunately have reached the capacity of where they're safely living in their apartments, as anybody with, I feel, with any kind of common sense would recognize. And working to help those folks transition comfortably and respectfully out of their apartments, which is a very difficult thing. I've been on the other side of that. It's just our folks have a lot of needs. While we say we only provide rental housing for seniors, as Steve, you've said to me, quite frankly, we do it all, is I think what you've told me. And when we do it all, it's hard, and it takes a lot, and we're happily doing it, but it is hard, takes a lot. So having an assistant property manager just to help with some transitions of that. Not that we have any expertise in seniors and senior living and transition, but just helping seniors feel more comfortable, to know where they need to go, just to give both our staff and our property manager a break. The assistant property manager would go a long way. So I am very hopeful that both those positions are able to get funded.
And that's very evident in Terrapin Grove. Lisa, is it Lisa, is that her name?
Yes, she's the property manager.
Yeah, the people respect her, and she deflects a lot of issues that were never deflected before. So that's something, I think it helps us productivity-wise and whatnot. So the fact that we're bringing on 2 new people and we're able to afford it, I think that's...
Well, we hope. We'll see. It's kind of, this ultimately gets approved by the county, and like Steve said, the county's throwing a lot of money in, but we're hopefully they get approved, because it would go a long way to help us. I think we're starting to feel a bit maxed out as people are happy with our services, but they're also coming to expect more too.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful.
That's good stuff.
I mean, at this time of budget, it always raises, I think, a very profound question about the housing authority, which is it the right size? Because when you have 1,000 people or some large number applying, should we have a larger housing authority? But you have to look at the carry expense of the operation and size that with what the county can afford to do and still maintain schools and ambulances and everything else. And right now, we're fortunate enough not to, if it was bigger, we'd be scrimping, and I'm glad we're not. You know, I'd rather run a thing well a little smaller than I would run it behind a little bigger.
Right.
And I don't know, but it's something that's certainly up to everybody's discussion. So.
I mean, my feeling is on that is I agree that we could probably expand and do better, but we're making progress thanks to you all, thanks to the staff, thanks to the tenants, quite frankly, thanks to the county. But let's continue, let's make sure what we got is right, and then look to see, before we try to expand too much, let's tighten what we have.
Well, I think that's exactly what's happened. I mean, and the county has been very open-handed in its support of the operation, because remind yourself that for a number of years it gave nothing, and now it's coming up with enormous amounts of capital and then subsidizing the operations by $800 million a year. So,
It's a delight, so thank you.
So, in following up just from the budget, contracted services are up by about 7.9%, which was led by higher building and ground repair costs and HVAC maintenance. Our benefits went up due to apparently a 25.8% increase in pension costs. Our capital budget request for FY27 is about $1,859,000, almost $1.86 million across 6 projects. We've got about $4 million across 6 years for it. Our rent and HAP payments for our housing choice vouchers, which we talked about earlier, that's, like you said, that's about $2.6 million in the budget, and that's up by 4%. Our debt service actually went down. So it went down 33.7%, interest down 77.9%, and that's, I think, from the sale of our admin building. And then lastly, just so you all know, there's also in the budget calls for a 2% rent increase. When looking at the rents, that means that the average rent increase on a monthly basis will be about $12.34. The highest will be at one of our scattered sites for $33 a month, and then the lowest will be $8.64 a month at Graceville Terrace. So I think that's more than fair. I mean, if you look at what our rents are currently, you know, they're like we talked about affordable rents, what are fair market rents, and all of our rents are less than half of what the fair market rents are close to half.
they're a quarter to a third, aren't they?
Yeah, in some cases, yes. I mean, I was talking with someone the other day about our Fisher Manor rents, thinking that they were extremely high at $1,600, but that's for a 4-bedroom. The fair market value on a 4-bedroom is $2,800.
Yeah.
So we're less than half on that one. If I did my math right, less than 1,000 almost on that. So, you know, so I think, and I think 2% is not a huge increase. And like I believe, Steve, you told me, like, you know, that we're shooting for a 2% inflation rate. And that would have been in line, but actually we're not there at the moment. So it's definitely below inflation.
Getting further away from it every
Yes, we
week.
are.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, it looked good.
Before I heard of the word.
But there's nothing we're overlooking in terms of a wish list for 2027. We don't have anything that, okay, we need this, we have enough in capital reserve, that kind of thing, or?
I mean, there's always more we could do, but also we're at capacity at what we could make happen. And so far we've put kind of everything we thought we needed. The next big thing leads to the next thing on the list, which I'll talk about. But the next big thing we're looking at is, I'll talk about this and then we can come back, is that we're looking to get a new roofs on Graceville Terrace. And that's a 2-step process, because you're gonna have to get architectural drawings and all that kind of stuff to make that happen, so that you can prepare the bid documents, and then you put it out. And we're gonna try to get some community development block grant money to do that.
So let me ask this question. When years went by during which this old operation got no subsidy whatsoever and was living off HUD plus the rent, and the condition of the buildings fell into considerable disrepair, and we came into it and started getting it back up to speed, would you say that the majority of the catch-up is now behind us, and that all that's left in capital is basically the ongoing capital expense that you would be naturally occurring every year over eternity?
I would say, to get to where you're suggesting, we probably have about 1.5, 2 more years, actually, because we are slowly rehabbing. For example, Fisher Manor, if some of those floors, if you walk on them, it's
Yeah.
literally like walking on a
Right.
waterbed. And like, so for us to get to the point where you are, we'd have to have all of those floors fixed, you know,
Right.
right that. We also have some rehabs, although a significant amount of work was done at Riverside. There's still more that needs to be done, so we're having to rehab those. We're getting a lot closer than we were, but we've budgeted out to do some of those major, bring it back up to speed repairs over the capital budget for the next 2 years after this. So we are getting into the maintenance and repair, like the roof at Graceville Terrace. That would just be regular. You're gonna have to do that no matter what happens.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, it's in the general amortization of your property that you're gonna wind up. I think it takes, if you live in a house, about 5% of the value of the house every year to, you know, because every 20 years you need a new furnace, a new roof, a new driveway. I mean, you're gonna find out that it's, and that's not, those rent people, our renters are not, that's a service we give them.
Yeah, you're right.
Yes. Yeah.
This is,
Okay.
Yep, so, I mean, if there's any other questions, if not, if you'd be willing to make the motion that's on your motion sheet, somebody would be willing to make that motion.
I make a motion that we accept the budget as brought forward, and
Second?
have a motion, a second, all in favor? Yep.
Aye.
Opposed? None? Done.
Okay, and then, I think I kind of already covered it, but I just gave you guys an update in regards to the roof at Graceville Terrace. I said that in the course of making the, budget. Now, I just wondered what you guys thought of me when we emailed this out to you, but, I have one more request for a motion. As you all know, we have, and you have one right here next to you, what's called the ACOP. It's the Queen Anne's County Housing Authority Operations Manual. The ACOP stands for Emissions and Continued Occupancy Plan. And what is it? It's the operations manual that governs how we admit, house, and retain our housing tenants. And it must remain current with federal law, HUD regulations, and local procedures. And this update reflects changes recommended by the group we use, Nan McKay. Now, a couple of things with it. It's also built and designed around what used to be the old projects. Fisher Manor used to be kind of a project where people's how do I explain to you how housing choice vouchers, you determine how much people have to put towards their own rent. That's how it used to be at Fisher Manor. They would, it was based on your income, how much your rent was, and it could fluctuate. So a lot of the rent design, the rent structure is built that way through this ACOP. So and we don't do that anymore. We transitioned out of that, and we now have set rents that we keep at a low rate, and then we just identify to make sure that the folks are income eligible when they come in. And that's the way we're following the rules and agreements with that. But it sends our operations agreement kind of off kilter a little bit. So we had to add at the beginning of it an agreement that we follow federal law, local law, all that, and then we say where that, and the lease, and then we go, and then this is behind it. So, and that's kind of the way we do it. So if you all vote to approve it, you'll be approving that kind of way of prioritizing how the decisions get made. We're also working with folks at HUD. We're working with the accountants that are helping with our process to determine if there's a better, more accurate operations manual to use at this point. The group we're using, Nan McKay, does not do another one that's more. So what we've decided to do is we've updated this one with all the changes you guys saw in there to reflect the latest and the greatest, to reflect what HUD's new requirements are, to reflect a couple of the ways that align better with how we operate as a housing authority, and to get things standardized and up to speed. But there's certain things where we're going to need to potentially in the future do it more, and we might bring more changes in front of you. So that's a hard copy of that here. You saw, I'm trying to think of some of the key updates in it. We're trying to be compliant with what's HOTMA. It's called the Housing Opportunity Through Modernization Act, which is a big HUD act. It hasn't totally it's been approved, but they haven't given us a date to implement. So we actually had to write it in a way that says, when it gets implemented, this will take effect. So you saw that. Criminal background records, the way we do that, there's stuff like for human trafficking, how to outreach. We went from just doing mail. Now we have to determine what the best way to reach out to folks is mail, phone, email, or text messages. How to deal with folks that are over income. Rules have changed with that. Inspection, pet policies. We've changed the name. We didn't change our name, we just made it reflect what our name is, Queen Anne's County Housing Authority. We've got some hearing procedures, because oftentimes if folks don't like what we've agreed or what choices, they can request a hearing, so we've got procedures for that. So that, I mean, that's the very, very cliff noted version of what the changes we have, but you can kind of see in there the changes we made. And it would just be nice to bring our operations manual, which is known as the ACOP, kind of up to speed and up to date.
So you want a motion?
I would love a motion if you don't.
What the language of it being, I hereby,
Move to approve.
like approval of the current, of the revised new.
Yes, as submitted.
Roger, can
So,
you?
so moved.
Okay. So Roger, you made that motion?
Right,
I can second it. Want to second it, Roger?
I made it, you gonna say?
Oh, I'll second it, of course.
No, we have a motion to approve, and we have a second to approve. All in favor? Any opposed? None? Passed. You got it.
All right, thank you. And that, I know I did a lot of talking this time, but we had a lot of housekeeping to do. So that is all.
Yeah, I would, do you think it would be a good time or not a good time to bring up that point that I brought up to you about the,
Well, you can talk, you can. I think, it's weird. I think you and I are in agreement. It's not a matter of, but basically, if you want to bring it up, it's the idea of when we have tenants that are in a lease and there's a creation of a problem where we need to get them out for various reasons, and there's a lease, Steve, and I agree with them, tell me if I'm wrong, Steve's like, Mike, get them out faster. They're not safe for other tenants. They're not healthy. It's not good. It's not safe for themselves to be there. Get them out there faster. And I'm saying, I agree. And there's ways to do it. And you showed me some ways over this weekend. You sent me some emails, but the thing is everything in those things is you've got to have paperwork. You've got to prove it. So if you go to court, you got to be able to show that, okay, we've sent this lease violation. We gave them 30 days. We gave them this. And then even to get somebody out, you got to go, to the eviction process tends to be 30 or 60 days. So we do have ways to have folks who are violating their lease or not safe, but it just takes a lot of time. So what my point is, so I think we should follow those. I agree 100%. But I also think that sometimes if you just sit down and talk with the family, that you can get them to understand that, hey, my person is not safe here, or they could be safer or more comfortable in another place. And if you just kind of have a discussion with the family, a lot of times you can avoid a lot of that acrimony by, just having a discussion, helping them work it out, and help them work it out so that they can find a safer place for their loved one to live or be. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
how do you argue with a man like that that comes up with an entire wheelbarrow, not a fact?
Okay, you win.
Yeah, how can, all right. I'm gonna make my case very clearly, because I'm a pretty good arguer too.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
And the way you start a good argument was like this, by attacking him for using unfair tactics of persuasiveness. You should have been in advertising.
I think,
No, you've had your say.
Okay.
Now, so here's the deal. We have tenant difficulties at times, which when we tried to clear them up, it seemed to filter down through the system. I'm framing this very nicely, that nothing could be done because they were protected under HUD regulations or some other kind of regulations. And I said, look, let us find a way to put something in the lease that allows us, when we have something that's a discontinuity with a good operation of these things, that's right in the lease that we have that power to control. And Michael, I won't say disputed with me, but we will put it that he found objection to what I was saying. And I went with AI into the housing authority law, and the regulating principle seems to be something called good cause. And good cause, the fractions of good cause are such things as safety, well-being of the other tenants, health. So what I'm saying is, in our leases, why don't one paragraph read that, upon application of the same definitions of good cause as supported by HUD, in those cases, we shall be able to remove the tenant, you know what I mean? And just go with that. Because we wind up getting strung out with problems in these buildings now in which the fellow tenants are not doing well. They're all being affected badly, and we can't protect them. And we should do it promptly. So that's...
Is that the one like Foxtown?
Wherever it is.
Okay,
Wherever it is.
This happens everywhere.
I don't want to talk about
Yeah.
specifics.
Okay,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's the argument. I'm just trying to get it in the lease. I'm trying to give you control so that we can look after the tenants. And if you guys out there have anything to say about it, I just want, we are here to represent the tenants, and that's what we're trying to do. I don't want to be hamstrung by the fact that there's a kind of mythical inability to do anything because everything is tied up with federal regulation, because it's not true.
you're right. That's a good amendment to the lease, absolutely. We need to put that in.
Well,
Sir,
it can go, well, my answer to that is, I agreed in past tense, I agreed with you on that. And then I spoke with our attorney, Patrick Thompson, and my understanding is that he said, yeah, we can put that in the lease, but you still have to go through these lengthy processes to prove everything you put in the lease. And then, and this is the part I don't understand, but he did say this, is he says that sometimes if you put a paragraph like that in the lease, it could actually slow down the process of make it harder to get a person out than if, which I don't understand why, so I don't know that yet, and I'm working on that. But he said, I can write the language and you can put it in the lease, but and I'm like, will it help? Will it speed up the process? And his response was, my words interpreting what he said was, it won't speed anything up, and in some cases it could slow it down. So that is why I am being cantankerous.
I understand that every jurist can have an opinion, but when I read the language in it, it seemed to me that, of course, the standard is going to have to be, you then might have to establish that that person did that thing, engaged in that behavior, created that adversity for the fellow tenants. But that seems to me to be the call of the housing authority, not, and then if you exerted yourself, applied due cause, and I doubt they'd go to court, but if they did, fine, you know what I mean? Like, I'd rather have it and be able to act than I would sit there, paralyzed, so.
Well, I mean, I'll get the language for you, and I'll get some language.
Well, I sent some to
Oh,
you.
yeah.
They sign a new lease every year, or how often?
Sign a
do
new
they
lease
sign
every
a
year?
lease?
Yes,
Yeah,
they do a whole
Every
new
year?
packet. I wasn't sure if yep.
and.
And we're actually updating our leases right now, so they're making them more
I would
consistent.
think this would be a thing which the tenants as a group would find in their favor, not regarded as an infringement of their protections.
Right.
But I don't know. I mean, all I say is that's.
Being new, how often does this occur?
Well, I'm kind of new myself, so it does, I mean, I will say that, like, we have, at one of our developments, we get a little update from some of the tenants. And not that there's experts or things, but they'll point out how many folks have got, like Alzheimer's and memory issues and things like that, and they're getting, so like, right now, this particular person, and they're not a doctor, they're not anything like that, but they identified 5 folks that are currently going through that kind of, so, and that's just one development, not our biggest development, so
Have we involved Adult Protective Services?
we do.
Work with the families?
We do, yeah, we do bring them. They're kind of, it's just like your probably experiences, they seem to be limited in when they can come into a case. You know, because if they come into the apartment, it looks safe, and it's, I mean, this is my interpretation.
Yeah.
But if it's safe, there's not a whole lot they can do in that case. And I experienced this personally with my father, who went through dementia. It's like I use the analogy of boiling a frog. I didn't realize, because I was with him every day, I didn't realize how bad he'd gotten, because one day wasn't much worse than the day before, but if I were to go back now and compare 2 years, it was intense. So there's a lot of that goes on too with families, and plus it's hard. It's a hard thing to move.
I don't disagree with that. I was trying to see where we are, because if we add the language, it may or may not help, but.
Yeah, I mean, we can add the language, we have apartments for seniors, and they're not assisted living. They are apartments for seniors, and and as people get older, they progress. So we probably have 4 or 5 active cases at every development, would be my guess.
And they don't have any children, anybody that would.
They do, but their level of involvement is different from tenant to tenant.
Have we talked to the Department of Aging as maybe to look for other remedies? I agree with what you're talking about. If we put it in, I think it gives us a leg up. But by the same token, there are other agencies out there that deal with this more than I ever had to do as a health officer, which I depended upon. They go in and assess this, and sometimes they can be successful.
Right. I do know that
Yes,
oftentimes they have a waiting list, so.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
Trying to, I say, get a consult,
Yes,
but has the expertise.
Right.
Hear from Patrick that shit, he didn't know, I don't think particularly about it.
Answer my
I looked it up,
question.
and it turns
Thank
out
you.
I think
I
we
wouldn't
got
know what
the
mine
wrong
is.
side. Yeah. Yes, sir.
so I'm happy to get some draft language,
Yeah,
run it by you.
that'd be good.
That's good.
We're just trying to help you, Mike.
We're all, it's
Help
all
you-
the same
help you
reason,
to help
the same
yourself.
goal. You want to help me, you want to help me.
We love Michael.
Awesome.
And we love our tenants. And we love everyone who works in the housing authority.
Amen.
Have we adjourned?
All right, so,
Have we adjourned yet?
no.
Make the motion.
We're still in business here, because the next meeting is May 11th of 2026. And
got it.
with that, if nobody else has any extension of this meeting, I will ask for a vote to adjourn.
That's adjourned, yeah.
We have that, and a
Let's go.
second,
Let's do it.
meeting over.
Let's do it.